I think I found a lesson that Arizona can learn from Florida about how to win as a GOP swing state. I'm Doug in Exile. My answer to this solution is going to be shocking and infuriating to a lot of you, but I think I've got it nailed down. My question is, what the heck is going on with Arizona that is different than Florida, which is winning? Arizona losing, Florida winning. So here's a guy saying that the reason why people leave one state, another clearly important factor which changes and is at least somewhat related to business opportunities, is the political environment of a state. The ruling political regime and the consequences of their policies are variables that frequently change and could easily explain changing migration patterns. So this is how they explain why people are draining out of California to go to Arizona and draining out of New York to go to Florida. Just follow me for a second. Put the image in your head because we're going for a long ride around the barn here. Here's net migration between California and New York, where they're the top two states in America last year that lost the most people net migration. It's California, 360,000 there, and New York, about 350,000. And that population is changing because California and New York had the worst fallout in America for George Floyd. Unsurprisingly, some of the fastest growing states in percentage terms are Western states close to California, but both Florida and Texas topped the list of the largest population increases and the largest levels of migration. Between the two, Texas grew more quickly in percentage terms. However, neither state's population increase was off trend with past increases. The story seems to be less about where people are going to and more about where they're running from. So the biggest difference between California and Florida, as far as what the conservatives have done, because Arizona's voting is still screwed up. It took them 2 weeks to count the ballots, and even then it was like, we barely know. It took Florida a couple hours, and they're a bigger state. Why? Because of this. This is the Florida Election Reform Act of 2001. When the hanging Chad and the Bush years of 2000, the big Bush v. Gore thing, embarrassed Florida across the entire United States, they had a giant vote reform act, and they went in and fixed everything. So here's, in response to many of the reforms suggested, the Florida legislature enacted a lengthy bill covering a range of reforms from improving voting machines to overseas ballots. On May 9th, 2001, one can say that the legislature reacted comprehensively to the presidential debacle of 2000. If Florida wasn't fixed back in 2001, you would not probably have DeSantis today. It would probably be in chaos, just like Arizona. And you know who you can thank? Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush is the weakest person on the stage by far. Jeb is a waste, and everybody knows it.
Trump should have made fun of him less and had him go and fix Arizona's vote problems, because Trump, low energy Jeb, fixed the vote machines in Florida, but they didn't do it in Arizona. John McCain, thank you. Governor DeSantis spurs historic increase in Republican voter registration. DeSantis, on his watch, increased the number of Republicans in the state by 300,000. Here goes. This is on Arizona, right? Arizona should be doing the same thing. In the past 21 to 22 months, Republicans have outperformed Democrats in voter registrations. So even in Arizona, we've been getting more Republicans registered to vote in Arizona. So it's not the number of voters. Here's Arizona voter registration, 1998 to 2022. See that top line up there? That's the red one. That's us. There's a slight difference between how many we're able to do and the orange line, which is zero party affiliation, and the Democrat one, all those Californians coming in, not registering as many Democrats. So the Republicans are just sitting there ready to vote, but they didn't. It's not that they didn't want to, it's that they couldn't. And the blame is not the machines, it's the mail-in ballots. GOP has big advantage in Florida ballots already cast. There is not a Democrat in office right now in Florida because they embraced mail-in and early vote ballots, and Republicans in Arizona did not. That is the number one difference between the two states that explains the difference in what, because it's not the percentage of Republicans, it's not the percentage of registered voters, it's not the amount of conservatives, the kinds of conservatives that leave California and go to Arizona versus the kinds that leave New York and go to Florida. It is simply the culture, and that Jeb Bush reformed more of the voting in Florida than John McCain, Arizona did. Here's a headline: Republican support for mail-in voting evaporated after 2020. So mail-in voting actually started in Arizona. They had the biggest head start of it. And it was Trump, in questioning the election integrity and stuff, that convinced people to freely choose not to vote. Notice Carrie Lake even went against this. She told people you should mail in your ballot. She didn't say it enough. Every single Republican that lost in Arizona lost by a margin so small, they all would have won if they had the same percentage of mail-in ballots as every other Republican state. It is not about the chain of custody of ballots, which I agree can still be a problem. It is not about machines breaking down on election day, although that is still a problem. They all would have won if Republicans culturally embraced mail-in ballots in Arizona. And it also could have affected Herschel Walker in Georgia. And so this is an unforced error. So the question is, do you want to be right or do you want to win? This is tactics, not morality, that even Carrie Lake has recently agreed to get the mail-in ballots and early ballots voting. Don't take them for granted anymore. We never do that again. And Republicans will never lose in Arizona again, according to the numbers. I'm Doug in Exile.